That was horrible. Actually, start.
I think we just welcome in.
We just start.
Yeah.
Is that a cold open?
Sure, I think so.
It's a cold.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to
Hi.
our podcast. We are starting here. We are dubbing That Was Horrible.
That was horrible.
Which is just derived from a terrible pun that I made to Derek one day that we decided that would spin into a great idea for a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully.
And for those out there, horrible.
Horrible.
Not just horribles, because we're talking about horror movies here.
Yes, specifically the horrible horror movies.
Yeah, so we'll take a little horror movie, we'll watch it, we'll talk about it, and we'll give you our opinions on if it was actually as bad as the world thinks it was or not.
See if it really deserved that kind of rating in that regard in the horror world. For starters, my name is Isaac.
And I am Derek.
Both avid horror fans who love the genre very much, watch enough of the movies and have since we were young, right?
Absolutely. I've been a fan of Hitchcock since I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
You are more of like a monster movie guy.
Oh, absolutely. Right? Anything with a good creature design is all my game.
Absolutely. So we kind of come from both of the sides of horror and meet in the middle, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to be doing every week is we will be taking one of the lower rated movies on Rotten Tomatoes is kind of where we're getting our information from, or maybe even looking at lists to see what people think are really bad. We watch the movie and then we talk about it. So this week we picked
Slenderman
2018. So we just watched it last night. We've had some time to digest it. Give you a little tidbits about Slenderman. So Slenderman was the King, Joey King. Came out in 2018. It was directed by Sylvain White. He also directed The Losers and Stomp the Yard, but I've never seen either of those movies. But he also watched I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, which I'll always know what you did.
There's I know what you did, I still know what you did, and then
I'll always know what you did.
Forever and always.
So silly. And then it was also written by a guy named David Burke, and I tried looking to see what he wrote. He really didn't write anything. He's written like a bunch of like unheard of movies that maybe we'll probably visit in this podcast. Honestly, he's probably going to become a favorite based on what I saw. But he also wrote a Jeffrey Dahmer biopic starring Jeremy Renner as Jeffrey Dahmer, which I didn't know existed.
Okay.
It was apparently pretty bad.
I think I remember seeing like pictures of that.
It's shocking to me. Anyway, back to Slenderman. So it was nominated for 3 things, which I was shocked at.
Oh, I saw those.
It was
2 of them are not great. I think.
2 of them are not great. But best horror poster, which I thought was interesting.
That's great. It's like you made a horror movie. That's fine. The poster was great.
The poster was cool. We loved it.
We could nominate you for that.
Hawaiian film critics labeled it the worst film of the year. Razzie's worst supporting actress for Jazz Sinclair, who played Chloe in
I don't even know what I would do if I received that nomination.
I don't either.
Goodness. Hide under a rock for the rest of my life?
Probably give it up. I'm done. The movie had a $10 million budget. And it grossed $51 million worldwide, which is insane.
That's pretty impressive.
And you can't forget to mention Victor Surge, who created the wonder that is Slenderman,
the Slenderman,
the cryptid. Those who don't know, Slenderman started as like a internet cryptid, creepypasta years and years and years ago.
Shared throughout the forums, spooking all the good children who had internet access at the time.
Hey, I remember sitting in my bedroom. I got sent the Slenderman thing. I was sitting there trying to, like turn off the lights, look into the camera.
I remember scaring myself, looking too hard at the pictures. And at that point in time, I lived like right on the edge of a forest. So I would sit and stare for long enough to see if I could actually see the Slenderman. And of course, you're a kid and your imagination runs wild. You convince yourself that that's what you're seeing.
I hate that so much. It's awful. I mean, still sometimes, like, even from being a kid, like looking outside in the middle of the night.
Exactly. But I think that's what's great about those like internet story creepypasta kind of things is like, it's just fun to scare yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Like we wouldn't check any of this out if it wasn't fun for us.
For sure. Okay, so my expectations for the movie.
Yeah.
Let's rewind to before I watched
let's get
it.
there.
I definitely expected it to have cheesy ass acting.
Yeah.
definitely some poor cinematography and some like really easy jump scares. Those were kind of my 3 things. What about you?
For me, I was expecting not to like the film. I definitely went into this thinking I'm not gonna come around to this one here. I also thought there was gonna be some kind of cheesy acting that wasn't gonna be that great and felt really forced, or like just like bad script writing in general. I thought I would enjoy the design of the creature because I was curious about that. I'm like, okay, we've got Slenderman on a big budget film. Let's see how we can make him look. And then finally, I just felt like they were going to miss the point of what made it a good internet horror story in the first place, and they're gonna go a direction that did not quite fit with it. And so those are kind of my expectations before watching the film.
Absolutely. Those, I mean, we'll get into it, but yeah, we definitely had some similar expectations there.
Yes, exactly.
So I guess let's just jump into the movie. So we're gonna start here. We'll talk about, I guess, what happened throughout the movie, how we felt about it. We are going to keep it fairly spoiler-free until we're done talking about that, and then we'll be like, hey, we're gonna get some spoiler here.
All right,
so.
all you people, take your headphones off now. It's time for the big boys to come in with their spoilery review.
So the movie starts in just like this little small town with like a group of friends, Stranger Things style.
Yeah, which I feel like was a really good setting for the story that they were telling, right? Like, I don't think it should have been adults, and I don't think it should have been like children either. I think high school really fits the story of the fear of this thing, right? The Slender Man.
I agree. And they're just like kids going through high school, and I mean, right off the bat, the acting wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was
expecting it to be a lot worse. I was expecting to cringe at the acting and all the lines too. I was really expecting to like, because you watch movies like this and you're like, nobody says these words ever. This does not flow naturally at all. But like, it all fit pretty well. Everybody was playing their parts very, very well.
I was pretty shocked, honestly.
But beyond that, I was not very pulled into this story at all.
No.
You know?
I was so bored.
A very drab color palette over the whole thing did not really help the air of it at all.
There's just like one color to this movie.
Yeah.
And right from the start, too, the music. I mean, the music doesn't stop the entire movie. Yes. It's just this, like, the strings, the, like, low noises, and the whole movie, and it never stops.
No. In moments it didn't, like, necessarily deserve it either. It's like, we are not getting... It's like they were aware that they were not going to hold anyone's fear in the audience for long enough. They're like, we just need to throw anything on there. This thing's here, cool. Put scary music over it.
Like the trees. The trees.
Always.
There was a scene in the movie where I looked at where it just showed like clips of these trees, and it was supposed to be scary, but literally I could change the music to be like happy music, and it's someone's wedding video.
It's a beautiful wedding video. Exactly.
I'm looking at these trees and I'm supposed to be scared, but all I can imagine is like a beautiful bride.
Exactly,
walking between the trees.
Yeah, and that just kind of shows you the power of like music and horror movies. And there are some great, what am I trying to say? Great versions of that, right? People use music very well. And this is a great example of not that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, it didn't really change it that much for me. It just kind of confused me in the end. I'm like, this wasn't that necessary. This music doesn't fit here.
I'm right there with you. And so I'm looking at my notes.
Yeah.
And I wrote a note that was, why does there feel like there's sexual tension between the sisters?
A little bit.
I was trying to remember why I wrote that, but I think it was weird. Like, I just don't think those sisters knew how to love each other.
No.
Like, the actors, it was that Joey King and her sister?
No, that was the other actor playing Hallie.
Oh, yeah, Hallie, yeah. They just, like, every time they talk to each other, they, like, had this, like, mysterious look on their face.
A little bit. Like, hey, they got a dirty little secret.
Like, what? Your sister, stop.
No, yeah, exactly. But their relationships were here and there, you know. It's kind of funny. Throughout the movie, I remember I liked some of them more than others. Then as the story progressed and some of them kind of went through different changes in their characters, I started liking them more than the other ones, you know.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like one of the main characters, I really started out, I'm like, okay, she's giving me a real genuine performance here, the girl playing Hallie, and then, you know, wasn't doing any of the overacting, and then some of the other characters I felt like kind of were, and then later on in the movie that felt more natural, and then that same first character just stayed there the whole time, just so one note the entire time. I could not get more emotion out of her. I realized where she started was what I was gonna get.
Absolutely. There wasn't really much character depth at all.
No.
And I think in a movie like this where you have this like creepy being that, you know, everyone knows the story at this point. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You go into the woods, you get nabbed by this tall slender man, right? That's the thing. At least that's my interpretation of it. And so you really need solid characters. You need to care about the characters because the monster isn't that exciting.
But I felt like I couldn't empathize nor sympathize with these characters because they were consistently hurling themselves into situations that would end in their death or further involvement with the Slender Man, right?
Oh my gosh.
It's like, how can I feel bad for these people if they are doing nothing to keep themselves away from this, you know? And it's not even the typical like horror movie, oh no, don't open that door, the killer's in there, you know? It's just like literally going out into the woods sometimes, like completely exposing themselves to danger.
For real.
And then they're like scared and shocked, like, why did this thing happen? Oh, I'm in too deep now. Of course you are.
Of course you are. Oh my goodness. It was weird.
Just couldn't feel for them. But then on the subject of the Slender Man, it was like, it's an internet horror story that we all know in our world, but this story was set in that world as well, right? They also knew. There were also so many forums and information about that. And I feel like that really takes away from what makes a monster scary in a movie at all, right?
Absolutely.
Because like I think at the end of all of it, like the root of all of the fear of these things is like the fear of the unknown. And it seemed like they knew almost everything there was to know about the Slender Man just based on how internet works at that time, you know? Like I didn't really enjoy the fact that like I couldn't be afraid of this thing because I knew its motives and its moves and what it was going to do, you know? So like, while there were like scary shots with the Slenderman in there, I'm like, well, I feel like I know this guy now. He's a good old friend. I know that guy. That's the Slender Man, my friend.
It's like if I was at home and an intruder burst into my house and I was like, oh wait, I got to go on WikiHow real quick and look up this guy.
Really,
see what's going on with It's like, I'm going to Google this creature that's broken into my house.
They literally go out to Google about this. Tell me more about this thing. Oh, I'm going to go to the library and read about him. You know, it's just like, it just took it away from me. You know, I couldn't feel afraid of this guy who should have been scary, right?
Very much so. And something I'm just now realizing, they were kind of Googling him with no, like, expectation or no, like, end to a means. Like, they were just looking him up. They weren't, like, looking up how to take care of it, how to avoid it.
No, they weren't looking up like Slenderman weaknesses. Is he allergic to fire? You know, like they were not getting any like good information that they would later use in the movie at all.
Can I spray him with some Windex and make him go away? Can I run away? Please tell me. What do I do?
Yeah, and that's not to say there weren't any like there were some good sequences with the Slender Man that actually shocked me. I was like, okay, no, that's good. I like where you went with that. That's pretty good. But those moments were always so short. I felt like the movie dragged for a lot of it and could not hold like a great amount of attention. The only reason it held my attention because I was waiting for something to happen the whole time. I'm like, well, if I look away, maybe I'll miss something good. And every time it got to like a really good climactic height of emotion scene where something scary was happening, I felt like they rushed through it.
Oh yeah,
it was like a 6-second scene, 100%. And then suddenly they're in something else. You know, like wait, live in that fear for a second. You finally got me there. I've been waiting
for real. It's unfortunate, too, because I think that the PG-13 maybe has something to do with that. Yeah. They were trying to go for that rating. But even then, there's so many good horror movies that are not rated R that you can really dwell in that fear. And it did not scare me whatsoever.
And I also felt like it was poorly established, like them getting to the point of like Slender Man being introduced to the story and like actually starting to spook things up, you know, happened very early on in the movie. And I felt like the method they used for it was very lackluster. I'm like, so that was it, huh? Okay. Thanks, I guess. And then suddenly I just felt like there was not enough established about the monster at all or their lives with each other or anything like that before things just started happening.
It was like, what, 8 minutes into the movie that girl disappeared? So, I mean, that's not really a spoiler. It literally happens like 8 minutes into the movie.
Exactly. And mind you, it took us about 4 minutes into the movie before we decided, are we really gonna sit through this whole thing? We're really gonna do this?
I think we paused it and we were like, how far are we into this? It was literally 4 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
I did make a note. So I think it's really interesting that instead of just using Wikipedia or like actual encrypted websites, they literally just made their own WikiHow.
Yeah.
Like they have these like stupid, they really, really shitty like cartoons of Slender Man, and then like every once in a while they would show a real picture from like the actual
and that's what I really appreciate, because there were actually some clips in there that I saw. I'm like, I remember that exact photo because it like struck fear in me as a kid, you know. I remember seeing that one, and then the next one would be like a completely doctored one, clearly made for the movie. I'm like, there are a bunch of those pictures, why don't you use those? Because exactly, and I think that's something that would really appeal to the people that know the story at all.
Absolutely.
Right?
But I feel like at that point, like that's such a small community of people that are watching this movie, at least in my opinion, like, because I was a fan of Slenderman as a kid.
Yeah.
And when this movie came out, 5 years ago now, I was like, I don't want to watch that. Like, so dumb. Like,
Yeah.
I have no draw.
I felt nothing for that movie when they had announced it. I was like, that's nice. Some people will go see that. And I guess that's why it's on this podcast now, right?
For real. I have a note here. Mm-hmm. I just want to read my note. Is Slenderman just Fred Krug?
Yeah, how do we not make him Freddy Krueger? Like, how do we...
But he basically is, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you never...
Freddy Krueger with a phone.
I wish that there was more... Oh, yeah. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, there's a segment towards the end of the film where he starts, like, hacking into your phone. I guess spoilers? Not really.
It's pretty well throughout, though, that he is, like, has the ability to, like, get into technology.
Yeah.
Which I felt like had good intentions because it started as an internet horror, but I don't ever feel like that really paid off in the way they wanted it to.
It was ultimately just cringy. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna use that word.
Yeah.
Because, like, we just kept making jokes of, like, oh, there's Slenderman outside texting the girls. Yep. Like, you just try to lure the girls outside with
who
his
gave
texting.
Slenderman a phone?
Slenderman's just an ad for T-Mobile because he's just sitting out there texting. Check out my sweet resolution that I'm getting on my Sony phone.
Really, though, yeah, this really great resolution on this video, like this FaceTime basically on the phone. Like, it was just, it was funny, though.
It's so stupid.
Yeah, and I really wanted the Slenderman to scare me more in the scenes where we finally got to see it, because I'm a big fan of, like, monster delay. Like, just kind of just tease me with it the whole time. Let me like get various glimpses of it throughout the movie, and then when you finally, like, here is the monster, I really want that to be a good, like, heavy hitting scene.
Oh, absolutely.
But and there were a couple times like that, but for the most part I was like, I don't know, he's just too much of a man. I wish they had made him. There are sequences where, like, he's down a hallway and he starts walking towards people. I'm like, I almost wish he, like, floated more than he walked, because that would make him look a bit more eerie and less just like a rather tall person.
Right, exactly. I agree. He's got those cool tentacle things. Well, I guess we're gonna just establish now that we're in spoiler territory.
Yeah, we're probably gonna head into the spoilery territory of it from here on.
It's kind of hard to avoid it. So if you're gonna watch Slenderman 2018, because it's such a movie,
and we've given it a glowing review thus far.
Yeah, like, please.
You're probably watching it already.
Oh, probably. They probably turned off. I mean, I wouldn't keep listening.
Yeah, of course.
I'm gonna go watch.
Let's go get this movie going on.
I want to have, like, anticlimactic scares.
Oh,
yes,
gosh.
please. So wait, what were we talking? Oh, I was going to bring up. So it's established that he's, like, kind of an eldritch being, but not really. He's just got tentacles, which I really wish was explored more, because I would have actually liked that, I think, if he was related to, like, Nyarlathotep. If you're familiar with Lovecraft and all, he's, like, the one who, like, gets into your brain while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
And I really feel like that would have really, really helped here.
I feel like I would have really liked to have seen, like, some kind of, like, deep lore about Slenderman going back very far, and like, so the internet is not the first time we've heard about something like this. It really runs deep, and people have been experiencing this for long times, right?
Absolutely. And I feel like being involved with the creators, Slenderman, Victor Surge, like, you could have done something like that.
Could have literally made canon lore for the Slenderman.
Literally, like, the idea of having a Slenderman movie, while kind of stupid, could have been used well, and I feel like it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like there's a spectrum here where it's like we either need to know too little about this monster, and it's like it's scary because of that, because I still feel like they knew too much about it, or we just need to dive into that a lot and say we need to find out more about this and really dig into
Make it a
this.
sleuth.
Yes, exactly, right? Like, let's find out clues about this character and such. I gotta say, in my expectations, I did kind of enjoy the design of Slenderman himself.
Yeah.
We, again, he's not shown in great detail a lot of the time, but I do enjoy how, like, the design of Slenderman is generally, just a very tall person, white, blank face in a suit, right? And so, like, how do you make that kind of scarier? Well, like, in their design of this thing, it was like the skin of the creature made folds that made a suit and a tie, like, design on the actual body itself.
That's so cool.
Which I think is really neat. That really tells.
You couldn't tell, though.
No, exactly, right? But on that, I think it's unfortunate because I looked and saw, like, some set pictures. There was an actual practical suit that they used for this character played by Javier Botet. Great, creature actor. And I was like, wow, that looks really fantastic. I can't wait to see it, because I saw that before I'd even seen the movie. And every shot that the Slenderman was in, it looks like he was covered in so much CGI on top of what was a practical suit that it was just a wash. It's just like, you might as well have not have used the practical suit if you're just gonna cover the whole thing in CGI anyway.
Seriously.
Because I really feel like the best way to do something like that is have a good mix of the both, maybe like a 70-30 kind of ratio there, where it's like 70% of the practical effects and 30%, give him cool tentacles that writhe around, that you really couldn't get with the practical effects, just like add to what is great about it, not cover it up entirely.
No, really, because Isaac told me, like, halfway through the movie that it was a suit, and I had no idea.
No, you really couldn't tell.
I genuinely thought it was CGI the whole time.
And it's hard to tell. I'm like, I can't tell which scenes they used the more practical suit over to CGIing him in there completely,
I think one of my favorite scenes in the movie. So, I mean, all the girls die. We'll say that here.
Everyone's dead.
Everyone's dead, which I did appreciate. We had talked about during the movie, we wanted more of a sinister ending. Spoilers for Sinister, I guess.
Go watch Sinister. Great movie.
Great, fantastic film. And I'll call that a film.
Yes, that's
it's not just
this
a movie.
is cinema.
Anyway, I wanted more of a sinister ending where I wanted everyone to die and the monster to live on, because then I like that ending to things, because I feel like it really makes you more scared, because you're like, okay, well, part of me is like, if this was real life, that monster is still out there.
Yeah.
And it did do that, but then it kind of didn't do that. Like, I don't know how to explain the ending to this movie. Yeah. It was so dumb.
Yeah, like, it really, it set itself up like, oh yes, the villain won. Then it just had this terrible epilogue for absolutely no reason, that like did away with any of like the ooh ah fear factor of like the ending there, where like the last of the surviving girls kind of gets like sucked up into a tree like that. That was a kind of a cool scene. I liked that. I was like, oh, that's really spooky. And if they had just like left it there, maybe had like a police announcement about the missing girls or something afterwards, would have been a lot better.
Absolutely.
But to have the girl's sister be like, Slenderman is still around, and he's been doing this to people for years. I'm like, I don't know what you guys are trying to set up here,
really, though.
But it's really taking away from whatever you actually had here.
Oh, yeah.
You lost me a little bit.
So we kind of jumped to the end. Let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about... So Joey King is like this... She's the only one I call by her name, and I don't even know her character's name. I don't even remember.
It was Ren.
Ren. Okay. So her character is like the one who's like, yeah, let's go look at Slenderman. That's what all the boys are doing. And so they watch Slenderman, and then they all start disappearing.
But that was terrible. That's what I was talking about earlier, about how like I really hate the way they set it up.
Oh yeah.
I really feel like for something this big, it had to be some kind of bigger, like even a ritualistic kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
But instead it was just like, oh, here's a website that we found super easy with like one Google search was the top result here. We didn't even have to go on like the dark web to find this thing. Oh, like here it is, super easy. And then there's just one video that they watch, and it was just like, okay, we watched the video. Well, let's go to bed now. And then suddenly Slenderman is in the story now, all of us. Like, it just,
oh no, I'm having a dream, I'm scared.
Yeah, exactly. I just hated it. And they kept doing this thing where they would just like show you a million different clips of like spooky images, like all at once, like trying to like really overwhelm you.
Oh,
it was just like, it took me out of it. I felt like that was kind of an attempt to reach into like the internet side of Slenderman as such. It was a miss for me. It was just very oddly edited, and I didn't really enjoy those sequences.
Oh yeah, the editing in this movie. Yeah. What were they doing?
There were some questionable effects going on throughout.
Like every time someone was affected by Slenderman, and I appreciate the continuity of it. I guess if I had to give it like a plus, like they kept the same theme from each kill or each disappearance. I guess. But it was literally like watching a scene from Inception that was shot through a bunch of glass.
Yeah.
Or like one of those prisms, right? So everything was just like twisted and rotated, and it looked so bad. It just kind of hurt my head, and it didn't do anything to strike fear.
No, exactly. It didn't make me feel uneasy at all. It was just like, oh, okay, this was a decision. It just kind of felt like they were trying to find ways to make it scarier than it was, and it just wasn't working. It just felt very forced the whole time.
So each of the deaths too, I feel like we should talk about. Like it made it seem like the monster, Slenderman, was making them do it to themselves, but then other times it definitely made it seem like he was doing it to them.
Exactly. Yeah, it didn't really pick a side there. No. I don't know if that was intentional or not.
It kind of felt like they forgot to me.
Yeah.
Because like the one scene with the girl in her bedroom, and she going back to cool the great resolution on your phone. He like hacks into it. The phone's like going through walls. It's like going upstairs, like a little like GoPro video. Yep. And then it's in her room, and she's like, oh, he's not here. And then she starts getting choked by the Slenderman.
Yeah, and we see him in all his glory. He walks out from the closet. He's like got his hands around. You see these like cool, creepy looking fingers. I like that. Cool. Give me more creature design stuff. Absolutely.
And then she was choking herself.
Yeah, then you get a glimpse of her looking at herself in the mirror, and suddenly she's choking herselth. And then, of course, as quick as it started, that scene is over. Like, we get very little time with it. And
then you're like, okay, is she dead? Is she gone? And then her friends show up, and she's just acting weird.
Do we ever see her again after that?
Yes, remember they show up at her house.
Yeah, but after that...
Oh, I don't think so.
We never see her die.
I think they just forgot about her.
Because after that scene, her friends go by her house to try to see her, and they catch her at, like, the window, and she's staring blankly out the window, and they just leave.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, well, all right, I guess so she's okay then. They just leave, and then we never see that girl again.
Yeah, no, you're right.
We don't know if she's dead or not. I'm sure the Slenderman got her at some point, but, like, she was kind of just written off after that.
Yeah, they didn't know. So there's a part in the movie where they're like, okay, the way we get rid of Slenderman, so they get on this like AOL chat website that looks so dumb, and
every bit of technology they fabricated for this movie besides like Google, and it's like none of them had ever used a computer before.
No, really though. I feel like it was like the cameraman, or not the cameraman, like some intern on set. They were like, hey, go on the computer and design some cool AOL looking website.
The Slenderman website's got a list of videos with like IP addresses, and in the background is literally just a black screen with green code,
like
all
Matrix
over it.
Style. Like, I don't know what they were doing there.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they find this girl or some like chatter. There's like a texter person who was talking to their friend Chloe, the first person who went with missing. And they're like, how do we do it? How do we get rid of him? You have to give him something. So they're like, okay, we got to give him something. So go into the woods, and each of them brings something that means something to them. My girl pulls out a pot that she, or a mug.
She made a shitty pottery mug.
She made in 5th grade. And she's like, this is the mug I made in 5th grade. And this other girl, here's a picture. Immediately, here's a picture of my dead dad.
The only picture we have together. Like that's very sad. Like the difference between these two items here.
I don't even remember. A third one's like a scarf or something.
I think it was like a blanket made from her grandma or something like that.
Like, that's still tender.
Yeah, that's got good.
A mug.
And mind you, the girl who had the mug from 5th grade was the one who learned this information about we need to sacrifice something that's important to us. And somehow she missed the memo there. She did not understand the assignment like the other two did.
Or maybe she underexplained it. She's like, guys, we need something that means something to us. I got this mug.
Yeah, exactly.
Then she like smashes it all dramatic.
And then I think she actually gives the one with the blanket some shit about that. She's like, I thought it had to be something that was important to us. And I would have easily retaliated. Yeah, your mug from 5th grade is real valuable to you. That's going to get our friend back from the Slender Man.
I love that idea so much. She's just like, oh my gosh. This mug, I can't break it. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, you're going to tell me she didn't walk out of her house and pick up the first thing she saw. Like, I've been looking to get rid of this anyway.
Yeah. Well, surprise, surprise, that didn't work. So what do they do next?
Of course.
They blindfold themselves.
They blindfold themselves, and they explicitly say, do not take off the blindfolds. Like, a part of the lore that they are aware of because of the internet, right, is that you cannot look him in the face. Yeah. And as soon as they hear, like, a crack in the woods, one of them immediately lifts up the blindfold to look. Again, I cannot sympathize with this.
Immediately.
Not even hesitation. Not even I'm scared, I can't, but I must. Immediately, like, what was that?
Ooh.
Like, did you forget the scenario that you were in? Because your friend is missing.
We had a joke through the movie while we were watching it, that the sound Slenderman made when he was about to appear was like a bag of potato chips.
Yeah, the first time I really took notice of it was in the library, and I legitimately, for a second, thought, well, someone brought chips into the library. And I don't understand why that's a part of the Foley here.
But now looking back, that girl who took her blindfold off, she's just hungry, man.
Yeah.
She's sitting there, she's like, someone eating chips?
Really, though? Everyone's just starving. You know, I haven't seen you guys eating this whole movie.
So yeah, anyway, then, like, going forward, it seemed like there was some sort of a relationship going on with two of the girls.
Yeah, there was one sequence where she had like a dream about the two of them, and it seemed kind of romantic.
And I was like, okay, well, they're gonna go somewhere with this,
because she seemed a little more touched about the death than the others, right? Or the disappearance, not the death yet.
And that went nowhere.
That went absolutely nowhere. And then, like, a couple scenes later, she's like making out with the popular boy in the high school.
Yeah, exactly.
And goodness, that's the effects in that scene on him were just
so bad. Yeah. What was he doing?
I don't know what they were thinking there. I gotta say, my favorite scene with the effects in it though was one of the scenes that, like, I had some of my least favorite effects and my favorite effects, because there's a scene in the library with the chips, And the lights all go out, and you see this like very, like you said, like Inception-esque, like really stretched through glass, weird effects of the hallway, the library bookshelves on the side. And I was like, oh gosh, this is really bad. But then there's a bit where she sees the Slender Man, he's chasing her through the halls, and then he gets to her, and her whole face is completely covered up, and she is like doing these muffled screams through like the lack of a mouth. That was good. That was probably one of the spookier parts of the movie. There's something about that, just like the fact that she can still, because clearly there's still vocal cords on the inside, but she cannot get them out. She's just screaming against this like very eerie looking flat face was awesome. I really enjoyed that bit.
I also really like
probably
that.
Probably my favorite sequence there.
But again, though, to go back on our earlier point, they just took it away from us.
Yeah.
They literally just took it away. It was over, and it was really disappointing. I wanted to see more of that. Yeah. I wanted more of those like effects.
And I was thankful, like that was one of the longer like high tension sequences. Yeah. But again, it's just like it's over as quick as it was brought to us.
I think my favorite scene in the movie, other than that one, to say I had a favorite is a stretch. But there. At the end of the movie, one of the girls is in the hospital. One of the girl's sisters is in the hospital. One of the weird sexual tension sisters. And they're like there visiting with her. The one survived, isn't it? I don't even remember which girl it was. Is it Joey King?
Or is it in the hospital? No, it was Allie.
It was Allie. Yeah, so she's there in the hospital. And she starts walking through the hallway, and for some reason, everything in the hallway changes, and it turns into like a alternate Twilight Zone version of the hospital. And she's like I don't know if you remember the scene from The Shining where he's walking through and like weird things are happening in the rooms.
Well, everyone remembers that.
Oh yeah, like with the guy in the bear costume. Yeah. But it was kind of that vibe where like weird things were happening, and I hated it, but I actually really liked it because it was like. It made no sense for the story, but it was a cool concept.
Yeah, and again, it kind of reached into, like the Freddy Krueger thing, like, bleeding into your reality and affecting things that were not just like a scary man that you see in the distance, right? Yeah. Like, some of these people, like that one doctor had like no eyes.
Yeah, I liked that one.
Like,
and he was like combing sockets. The hair.
The long ratty hair of someone in a nasty looking bathtub. It was just weird. Like, I wish they had established any of that beforehand. It was the first and only time we saw something like that. And it was a little bizarre.
And then you find out that Joey King's character was behind it all.
But, like, not?
But yeah, like, not at all.
There was one twist in the movie where you're like, oh no, it's been her the whole time. Yeah. Then she goes to her house to, like, confront her about this because she basically found out through the internet that
it was
that
her
she
patient records.
Yeah, it was her patient records. She was the chatbot this whole time, and she was the one who took her sister out into the woods and showed her the Slenderman. She's the reason she was in the hospital. So we're like, oh no, it's her. It's always been her.
It's her.
Then she goes to her house and finds her about to jump off of her, like, second floor story of her house. That probably would not kill her. And then she pulls her from the edge there, and she finds out that was not even the case. It was literally like, oh, the Slender Man made me do it. It was before I knew anything. I'm sorry. So like, you couldn't even write her off as the reason for that by the end, because you really thought, oh, here's the spoiler now. Things are going to get really... this twist ending did not end up being a twist at all. It was
such a waste.
And then she just gets yanked out of the house by a big tree.
She does.
Didn't even look very like Slenderman-esque, just trees. Yeah, it looked very Evil Dead.
Evil Dead. Like, the last couple kills are just, like, so Evil Dead.
There was one, like, camera shot that had to be, like, that quick zoom through the forest thing that looked like that was held by hand, like in the beginning of Evil Dead. Kind of felt very inspired by that.
Which would have been great, but,
yeah.
Wait. And then the movie ends with so all of them are dead except for the sister. Sister starts narrating everything.
Which,
and she's like...
Again, just unnecessary.
I wrote down what she said. She said, they're all spreading his word, That's like the last line of the movie. They're all spreading his word,
It's just like there's a lot of comparisons to Slenderman being a virus, and I did not agree. No. Dumb. And I just I feel like they understood that he came from an internet myth, and they tried to make that a thing, but like turning him into a virus did not quite work the same for me.
Oh, can we also talk about the Chekhov's pregnancy? So like the girl is like, I threw up this morning, and they're like, are you pregnant?
Yeah, she's like, whose baby is it?
Whose baby is
it?
Tom's? And then later in the movie, she like wakes up in the middle of the night and starts throwing up or like the worst attempt to dry heave I had ever seen in a movie. And then all of a sudden she's pregnant.
She's got this big pregnant belly with like Slenderman tentacles poking out through it.
It was so stupid. Yeah. I wrote Slender babies.
Yeah. And then immediately after that, she wakes up from this nightmare to hear her sister screaming, and the way she's holding herself and heaving makes it seem like she's giving birth. Just the way it was led up.
Yeah.
I was like, is she about to have a slender baby in the real world? I'm kind of lost here. And that was nothing.
It was so dumb. It was, I think, another attempt at the Freddy Krueger-esque.
Yeah.
Like,
and we've talked a lot about like the negative sides of this movie, but like in the end, it was neither good nor bad for me. I don't think. Yeah, it's just it was a very flat, one-note movie for me.
I think I'm right there with you. I don't know if I would recommend it to anyone.
No.
But I wouldn't also say, like, no, don't watch that movie.
Yeah, it's just like time I don't feel like I will get back, but I don't necessarily regret giving up, you know? I definitely don't feel like it deserves to be at the lowest ranking of, the Rotten Tomatoes ranking there, you know? I just definitely don't think it did anything for me. I just felt very nothing after the movie. I didn't feel very moved either towards, this movie is unwatchable, or like, I really enjoyed that. I was just very, very in the middle with it. Yeah, I think very little for me.
I think I'm right there with you. Mm-hmm. I think if we were to give this a rating, so we were trying to decide what rating system we want to do. Mm-hmm. And we've got horrible. We got horrible. And then I don't know, like that was a movie, I guess.
Yeah.
Which I like having it a question mark at the end, because that was a movie.
Yeah,
like
question.
What?
So and like, where do you think this would land?
I actually think this would fall under that was a movie, because I wasn't expecting it to be, and then it kind of was, but wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like a lot of my expectations were met, and some of them were not, which was a good thing. I definitely I came in with a much more negative mindset than I walked out with.
Yeah, me too.
So I wouldn't call it horrible, and I wouldn't call it a great flick, but I would probably also call it, that was a movie. Because if we're gonna give something the title of horrorble, I feel like that really it means it fits in the genre, told a good horror story. It kind of like, it got me spooked a couple times here and there, enough of the time, there was a good ratio of that within the movie. And I don't think this was horrible, but I definitely think it was a movie that I watched.
It was a movie I watched. It didn't scare me. It wasn't a horror movie.
My life was not changed at all because of it.
All right, well, we got any trivia? We got any cool fun facts about the movie, Isaac?
I do remember I actually called this out to you during the movie because, me, avid creature fan of movies. I'm familiar with like which actors play different things, like Javier Botet and Doug Jones. Great physicality in their creatures and such. So I actually recognized there is a shot in that creepy doctor's scene, with like kind of like The Shining, right? Where there's a man who walks from way down the hallway, and he looks, very tall and slender, kind of to give you the idea like, oh no, it's the Slenderman walking towards me. And it's just some doctor. That doctor was actually the actor that played the Slenderman. He was the one in the suit. It was Javier Botet, so cool. Which was really funny. I'm like, okay, yeah, so that really helps to lend itself to that.
Absolutely. What else you got?
They were very nervous about releasing this movie because of, at the time there were the ongoing court cases about like the Slenderman killings with those girls.
Oh yeah.
So they were incredibly nervous. So they actually they pulled a lot of the advertisements for it. They really did not want to really boast about this movie being made. And they released it with very little promotional materials, and it did not screen for critics just because there was a lot of flack they were getting for even making the movie, even though it didn't have anything to do with those, which I was actually a little worried about before the movie started. I was like, I don't know if I want this to be about those actual Slenderman killings, because that's pretty awful.
I didn't even connect that.
Yeah, exactly. But so a lot of people were kind of against the movie for that at all. Even the father of the person involved in that thing was very sickened by it, didn't want them to do it. So yeah, they definitely did not want a lot of people to know about this movie. They definitely kind of tried to keep it on the down low. But that was really about all I could find as far as trivia for this one. Although the characters of Hallie and Lizzie, their last names are actually the real last names of the original creator of Slenderman, whose real name is Eric Knudsen, but he goes by the pen name of Victor Surge.
Knudsen. That reminds me of The Matrix had a similar problem when it came out because there was a bunch of shootings or something. And so
yeah, exactly. So I mean, it makes sense, right? Why they wouldn't want to.
They've got to pay attention to their audience.
Yeah, exactly. And understand the climate around it and what you've got going against you, right?
I don't know if you've listened to that story, but it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, it's a rough one.
So go check that out if you're interested. But yeah, I think My Favorite Murder has an episode on it.
Oh yeah, I bet. But yeah, that was our review of Slenderman 2018 on That Was Horrorble.
That was a movie.
I think is where we will land with that.
Yeah, we'll figure out. We'll do another one. I don't know what it's going to be.
Yet to be decided. Yeah, I think we'll be doing a bit of a trade-off here. One week I will choose something. Next week Derek will choose something. And we'll kind of go back and forth there, really find more of a rhythm there. But this is what we've got so far. So stick around. We'll have some more spooky, scary stories to tell you in the movies that nobody else really wants to. So we'll watch so you don't have to.
Yeah, we watch these so you don't have to.
Exactly. Stay spooky.
Stay spoopy.
Goodbye.